Yipee-Ki-Yay, Mr. Falcon.
All right, so we're going to be examining a phenomenon in Hollywood. Every once in a while, two movies that are almost identical or share a lot of similarities come out at almost the same time, often in the same year, and it's weird. You get two versions from the exact same era of a very similar story, and usually one flops and one does really well. It's rare that both flop, and it's almost impossible for both to do well, but usually one catches and the other one doesn't, and it's not always the one that comes out first, but in this case it is. So we're looking at two Westerns. We're looking at Tombstone, that's from 1993, and we're looking at Wyatt Earp from 1994. And while they came out in different years, they came out only about 6 months apart.
Ah, that's close.
Yeah, it's really close, man. It's really close. And they're both, essentially, they both hinge on the story of Wyatt Earp and his brothers in Tombstone and the events surrounding the famous gunfight at the OK Corral. We're going to get into a little bit of how this one happened, how it came about that they were made in this way. Both of them A-list films with big budgets, big casts. Like, it wasn't like one was an indie and one was a Hollywood flick. Really similar in scope, and except that Wyatt Earp tried to be a really down-to-earth, grounded Western epic, telling most of the life of Wyatt Earp.
Nearly all of it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they skip a chunk at the end, but I mean, I don't know how much shit he got into in the latter chunk of his life. But yeah, it's more of a biopic, and it's a long movie. It's 3 hours long, whereas Tombstone is a tight 90-minute, more of an action Hollywood type Western that doesn't get too bogged down in big storytelling. You know, it's very fast paced and easy to watch and fun. Whereas Wyatt Earp is kind of dour. Yeah, it's a great movie. I loved Tombstone since it came out. I remember renting that with my dad the first time, and he loved it too. He loves that movie.
You want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
I mentioned that movie to my dad, and I was like, "Oh man, Tombstone, that movie's great." My dad goes, "Psh, God, that movie's unwatchable." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" He goes, "It's unwatchable." You know my dad. He's just very, just definitive. Unwatchable. And I was like, you got to give me more than that. Why is it unwatchable? He's like, it's unintelligibly filmed. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, just the gunfights, all the action. It's unintelligibly filmed. And I was like, he won't elaborate. It's unwatchable, unintelligibly filmed. I was like, what the whatever. Agree to disagree. I love Tombstone. So then one day, I'm like looking through, and I see a Western. I'm like, oh, The Quick and the Dead, Sam Raimi. I haven't seen that in a while. I put that on, and then I'm watching it, and I'm like, God. I say to myself, this is fucking unwatchable. And then I'm like, the light bulb goes off. I text my dad, and I'm like,
Wait,
yo.
was he oh, no.
I was like, do do you remember we were talking about Tombstone? He goes, yeah, that movie sucks. I was like, are you talking about the one with Russell Crowe and Leo DiCaprio and Sharon Stone? He goes, yeah, that's Tombstone, right? I'm like, no, you dummy. That's The Quick and the Dead. That movie's awful. And he's like, which one's Tombstone? I was like, Kurt Russell? He goes, oh, yeah, the movie's awesome. Like,
so for how many years was your opinion lowered of your father because you thought he didn't like
man,
Tombstone?
It was like a year and a half. It was a long time. I was just like, I went home. I was like, what's his problem? That movie's awesome.
And yeah, he didn't put him in a home.
He just had the wrong movie in his head. I don't know how it happened.
He's definitely right though about Quick and the Dead.
It is unintelligibly filmed.
Sam Raimi has a style and it can work, but it just did not work for a Western. But that is a good lead-in to this because it gives context for where Tombstone and Wyatt Earp landed in the landscape of 90s movies, right? Westerns were kind of dead when we get to 1990.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were huge in the 50s at their zenith. And then the 60s saw spaghetti westerns and Clint Eastwood come in while John Wayne
huge.
And John Wayne was still doing his thing, and tons of westerns in the 60s still, TV and movies, TV series, beyond innumerable TV series, TV shows you never heard of that ran for like 1 or 2 seasons.
Like The Rifleman, Bonanza.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, and the big ones too, the ones that did well, like Rifleman was popular, and Gunsmoke, and Wanted Dead or Alive, and Clint Eastwood got his start in Western TV shows. He was on Gunsmoke, and it was just a thing. It was like a cornerstone of pop culture for so long, and then the 70s came around, and as they wore on, and 70s movies became what they were in the hangover of the Vietnam War. There's some dour movies. They're cynical. They're jaded. A lot of them have downer endings, and they got really, really gritty and realistic. And I mean, there was still some fluff and bubblegum, of course, but there didn't seem to be any room for westerns for a while. Clint Eastwood still made a few, but even he started getting away from them and doing other stuff. He started doing the Dirty Harry movies in the 70s.
Oh, those are huge.
Yeah. But every once in a while he did something, but they stopped hitting. They weren't hitting with audiences. They weren't doing well in theaters. Home video wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah, you had like The Outlaw, Josie Wales.
Yeah, like that was one of his later ones, and Pale Rider. And because then he started directing, and he started, I think he directed Pale Rider and starred in it. So that's when he started doing it. But then he played Misty for me, and he started doing those monkey movies. What the fuck were they?
Every Which Way But Loose.
Yeah, that shit. He started doing some weird shit. And then he found his niche with Dirty Harry, and that was really, he drifted off. And then in the 80s, like, where the fuck did Westerns fit in the 80s? You had Young Guns, and that was about the best Hollywood could deliver. And that was more of a ensemble cast of young actors type of thing than it was a real Western. I hate Young Guns. I know a lot of people that like it because at our age it was I don't know, it was like the only Western that came out and it had all these fucking actors in it that were in stuff, but I could never stand it. I just don't fucking like Emilio Estevez maybe. He just pisses me off. I think he's a horrible actor. I like Kiefer, but I don't know, man. Something about both of those movies, the first one and second one, bugged me. So, what? Go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was aware. I think I saw the first one. I never even bothered with the second one. Yeah, I had no attachment to those.
No? Okay. Yeah, I just would see him on TV. I didn't even realize people liked him that much.
I would change a channel if I saw it on TV.
So then we get to 1990. And I guess things were ripe for the genre to get resurrected. There's something about 90s movies, man. The scope opened up again to what it used to be, I think, in older films. There were so many movies in the 90s that looked so good.
Yeah.
And like they weren't shot in the 80s. You can just look at it and you're like, yeah, man, like it's Zemeckis movies, like Forrest Gump comes to mind. Just the way they look, I don't know what it was. I think it was a combination of cameras getting smaller, of some digital effects becoming available to make things look a little better and polished. But I don't know. There's something about 90s movies. And, I think of Last of the Mohicans, the way that looked and the way Dances with Wolves looked, which came out in 1990 and kind of resurrected the Western genre. And it's, of course, Kevin Costner, Western epic about the Great Plains. So it's a little different than the gunslingers in a mining town kind of Western, but it counts. It's rifles and horses and shit. It was stuff people hadn't seen on a big screen in a really long time, and it was done in a new, updated, modern, not racist way, which is nice.
Oh yeah, they made every attempt to not be racist.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of the point of the story. If anything, you just want to just kill white cavalrymen after. By the end of that one, man, they lay it on thick in the final act. So that comes out, makes Kevin Costner a huge star. He was on his way up before that. Like he had been in Field of Dreams.
When did Robin Hood come out?
After.
Oh, it was after.
Yeah, he had been in, I think Field of Dreams was his biggest movie to that point. But then he was in JFK, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and a couple of The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston.
Oh, The Bodyguard was huge.
Yeah, it was a big hit. Not a great movie, but it was a big hit.
No, it was terrible.
But he was in all those between 90 and 94 when Wyatt Earp came out.
That's
so
wild.
He was a busy fucking guy. And all those movies were gigantic hits. Like he could do anything he wanted. And that's how you get to this point. So they were gearing up to make what became Tombstone. And they wanted Kevin Costner to play Wyatt Earp. And apparently he agreed, and they were in pre-production. And he didn't get along with the director at the time that they had working on Tombstone. And because he was Kevin Costner, he was like, fuck y'all, I'm going to go make my own thing. And he went off and at first was going to make a Wyatt Earp miniseries, I guess for TV, maybe HBO at the time, I'm not sure. I guess it could have been HBO. And that eventually turned into the movie Wyatt Earp. So he was fully aware that there was another project going on from a major studio about Wyatt Earp. And he said, fuck it, I'm Kevin Costner. I'm going to do it anyway.
Oh, yeah. The challenge is on.
And then the funny thing is, before Tombstone started getting made, that director bounced. He left the production, and they got George P. Cosmatos in there to be what is now widely regarded as a ghost director, so that Kurt Russell could actually direct the movie.
That's
and star
fucking
in it.
wild. I did not know that Kurt Russell basically starred and directed in Tombstone. That makes me like it even more.
He talked about it in an interview, and I forget, someone else from the cast corroborated it, and it's kind of not like a thinly veiled secret that goes on. And I don't know what it was with Cosmatos. There's some weird shit that went on with him. He passed away a long time ago, but they said the same thing about Rambo 2, which he directed, but it's kind of, Stallone has hinted.
Oh, you think that was like a Stallone project?
Yeah, he's hinted over the years that he kind of directed that movie, and there's photos and behind the scenes stuff from the set where he's telling people what to do and shit, which is kind of weird.
George Cosmatos would yell "cut," and then Stallone would go, "Nothing is over."
Dude, something's hinky. When DVDs were new, I used to watch the director commentaries a lot, and his for Rambo 2 is, it's almost like he wasn't even on the set. Like he has nothing to say about anything that's going on. He just rambles.
Cosmatos?
Yeah, he just rambles in this really thick Italian accent. I don't know. It's very strange, but anyway, you
That's
got
crazy.
Tombstone out of it from Kurt Russell, who
Shit, I'll take it.
he's been making movies since he was a tiny child.
Yeah, man. He was a Disney boy.
Yeah, he's like Hollywood royalty, basically. He's been around movies his entire life, his whole family. You know, was married to Goldie Hawn, who was the spawn of Hollywood, again, royalty. So,
Kurt Russell has become like the nexus of my entertainment universe.
the Nexus.
Yeah, man.
Tell
Kurt
me,
Russell,
what-
he's in like, okay, my favorite movie of all time. Not the best movie. My favorite is Big Trouble in Little China. Right?
Yeah.
You know this. It's goofy. I fucking love it. It's Kurt Russell, right?
Yeah.
Who doing, and I don't know if you know this. If you ever watched that movie, it was originally about a guy that lost his horse in San Francisco during the gold rush, and so he was going to play it like John Wayne. And so when it came time to film the movie about the truck driver, that's why he talks the way he does. It's a fucking John
Really?
Wayne
That's his-
impression. Like I told my last wife, I never drive faster than I can see. Besides that, it's all in the reflex. It's John Wayne. He's doing John Wayne.
He does his John Wayne bit in Death Proof.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
You're
Going in the book.
Yep. So then, yeah, he's in Miracle. He plays Herb Brooks. It's my favorite
Yeah, that was
sports
great.
movie of all time.
That was great. You want to hear? You know something cool about that movie?
What?
I got to watch that in Lake Placid at a Airbnb. My wife used to figure skate, and she went to a summer training camp there at the old Olympic facility where that game happened, where we beat
No
the
way.
Russians.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, at the Olympics in Lake Placid. And yeah, since we were up there, I'm like, fuck it, let's watch Miracle. And it was really kind of cool. I'd never seen the thing all the way through. It was
That
neat.
that movie gives me chills.
Yeah,
When
it's a
Mike-
great sports movie.
When Mike Eruzione, when he's running them up and down the rink.
Yeah,
Who do you play for? Who do you play for? And then finally Eruzione's like, my name's Mike Eruzione. I play for the United States of America. That's all, gentlemen. Oh God, chills.
Red, white, and blue Jimmy stirs all up in your shackles.
Dude, he's in Kurt Russell's in The Thing, which is my favorite horror movie
Right.
ever. He's in Tombstone, which is like one of my favorite westerns. Just like
Tango and Cash, right? Which is like your favorite romance.
I've never seen Tango and Cash.
What the fuck, man?
I know.
Kurt Russell fan, and you never see. It's not a good movie. It's
I
not.
know.
It's very funny though to watch it when you've got a few beers in you.
Put it on the list.
It's
But
a
yeah,
funny one.
Kurt Russell somehow has like insinuated himself into like all my favorite shit.
In Tombstone, I often wondered who won in the end. Was it Kurt Russell's mustache or Sam Elliott's?
Oh, Kurt Russell's. I'm sorry.
'Cause
Sam Elliott.
those are a couple epic stashes, man.
Like Sam Elliott, you know, in the long run, if you're going to look at the entire career, yes, Sam Elliott's mustache was an institution, you know, to the point where when he shaved it for some role. I forget what movie. It might have been like one of the Hulk movies or something.
Yeah.
He shaved the
Yeah.
mustache. But in that particular movie, Kurt Russell's mustache is fucking crazy. It's something else, man.
There's a cult of people who believe that every movie Sam Elliott's in without his mustache is doomed. And
I'll buy that.
he was the villain in a season of Justified, that Timothy Oliphant TV show.
I heard that's great.
He had no mustache, and as it was the final season, and a lot of people regard that as the worst season. And other sane people regard the season before that as the worst season, but whatever. So
That's funny.
back to the comparison of these two flicks here that came out almost at the same time. You never saw Wyatt Earp before, right?
I had not. I watched it at your recommendation, all 3 goddamn hours of it. But yeah, man, I watched it. Yeah, it was. It
What do you
was.
think?
I liked. On the whole, I'll say I liked it. However, there were parts that I was like, "That's awesome," and then there were other parts I was like, "This is too long. Like this is a slog. What's going on?" So yeah, I think it's stuff. It could have done with a little more editing, but on the whole, I had to remember like you're not. This is not the same movie as Tombstone. Tombstone's the myth of Wyatt Earp, and Wyatt Earp is the life of Wyatt Earp. And
Yeah.
I think if you make that distinction, you can enjoy both of them for what they are.
Yeah, because there's a lot of myth around him and a lot of other characters from that period in history, just because there was fiction being written about them, being passed off as true tales while they were still alive. A lot of them, just like the Mountain Men, Jim Bridger and all those cats. They
Jim
were selling-
Butcher?
Yeah, he was. He's actually in that. The Revenant. He's a character in that story. He's the young redheaded guy. He's
The one played by Domhnall Gleeson?
is that his name? The guy from We're the Millers?
Oh, no, not him. Domhnall Gleeson was like the one that was in command. Domhnall Gleeson
No, not
played
him.
like Admiral Hux.
No, the young guy who Tom Hardy is with.
I know
through
you're
most of
talking
it.
about.
Yeah, that's Jim Bridger. He's one of the more famous mountain men from the frontier days, and but him and a lot of characters later through the Old West, dime novels were being typed up and sold about them and their exploits, and it was just most of it was fiction, and Wyatt Earp was no different. Except, the actual gunfight at the OK Corral that day, there's people who saw it, there's
Yeah.
records,
A lot of
there's-
eyewitnesses.
Yeah, there's a lot of details that are pretty cemented in as happening. And you can tell kind of what they are because they're both, those details are in both movies. So, they had to kind of come from at least common source material, right? And most of the similarities are from that gunfight of that day. It's pretty much, other than the very cinematic burning building that's in Tombstone for some reason.
Which is awesome.
It's awesome, but it's all right. You could have explained what that was real quick. Other than that, the gunfight sequences are really, really similar.
Yeah, in both instances, they basically round the corner. And they stop and they're confronted. Each group is confronted with like a couple guys holding guns, and they pause. And they're standing like 12 feet from each other.
Yeah, they're
like
really close.
right in each other's faces.
They're really close.
Yeah, and it's like it's even worse in Wyatt Earp, the Kevin Costner one. They're just they're standing like 8 feet from each other. It's crazy.
Yeah, if you look at the map, like an overhead of the layout of the OK Corral, it's not that big. It's not. They really were right on top of each other, and both movies have it happening right next to the photo studio.
Right? Yeah.
Where what's her name was getting her nudie
Josie?
shots. Josie, yeah. So that must have been a consistent detail. The wounds that everyone suffers are the same.
And
Wyatt
yeah,
never
you-
gets shot.
You hear what's his Virgil, his older brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, in both movies, he says the same line. They're like, he's going to lose the use of his arm for the rest of his life. And he's like, that's okay, darling. I still got one good arm to hold you with.
That's right. I think Michael Madsen in Wyatt says hug instead of hold. But yeah. You're exactly right. So
It's
there
the same
must be
line.
some account somewhere that has him saying that. You know what I mean? Because where else?
Yeah.
How else could both movies have it?
And like Tombstone to me is like one of the most quotable movies ever. So like I could do that movie front to back. And so when you hear the same line in Wyatt Earp, it sticks out. And another one is when like the the sheriff, Behan.
Behan, the county
Behan,
sheriff.
He comes up and he's just like, "You're under arrest," and Wyatt Earp straight says like, "No, I don't think I'm going to let you arrest me today."
Yeah,
they say it in both movies.
Both actors say that line really well and differently. The delivery from both is excellent. Like, and don't get me wrong. I mean, Kevin, and also let's just say this: Wyatt Earp flopped. It cost an arm and a leg to make, and it flopped. Whereas Tombstone was a box office success and did really good in, video because it was not 3 hours long. Fucking Wyatt Earp came on 2 cassette tapes. It came on 2 VHS tapes.
That movie.
It was one of those fucking things. Like, people used to see one of those movies and just be like, nope.
Yeah, right.
So, but Kevin Costner did a great job, and this is one of his most sedate, kind of dour performances. Like, he's very serious and stern in this.
Can I put an asterisk there?
Yeah, please.
I think like one of my gripes with that movie is that when he was and you know what, you can find the dividing line in Wyatt Earp. I'm going to give it to you right now. The dividing line in Wyatt Earp is the mustache.
Okay.
When Kevin Costner evolves into his final Pokemon form, of like fully evolved Wyatt Earp. He's got the mustache. He's got this like ever-present glower, scowling, and like from that point forward, he's great. He is Wyatt Earp, the Wyatt Earp that I'm familiar with. But before that, pre-mustache, and I point to the scene in one of the saloons early in the movie when he throws that fucking pool ball at the bad guy from Karate Kid.
Yeah.
You know? And he's just like, Wyatt Earp, and he goes, "That's my name." And then they're getting ready to fight, and he's like, he's smiling. He's like, "Oh man, all I know is, Mister, you popped me pretty good back there." And I'm like, "Who the fuck is this guy? That ain't Wyatt Earp. He looks like a schoolboy."
Well, he's supposed to, and that's the thing that the movie struggled with the most, is that it wanted to tell Wyatt Earp's whole life story, right? So they had a kid, like a tween, playing him.
Right.
And he's supposed to be like 12 or 13-ish.
And all of a sudden, he's Kevin Costner.
Yeah, all of a sudden, he's Kevin Costner with a bad mullet wig, and like they shaved him real close to make him, and so they could hide the makeup they put on him to make him
somehow
try to
it
look
was
young.
not close enough.
No, and he's trying to play like what I guess like 18,
20,
19-year-old Wyatt Earp, and it doesn't really play. And there's all that golly gee shucks stuff when he's courting his wife and everything. Like, I get it. Like, it's supposed to be contrast and stuff, but man, it's long. There's a lot of it. I pretty much like it from the point when she dies onward. I think he did a great job as drunk Wyatt Earp.
Yeah, drunk Wyatt Earp, he was good.
And I gotta say, that scene in the jailhouse when Wyatt gets arrested for stealing that horse, and his father shows up, Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
That scene and that monologue, basically, that Hackman delivers, fucking, I can't, every time I see it, it still hits me. Hackman, what a fucking
Gene
legend,
Hackman's
dude.
wonderful.
Just everything he's in almost is just, and he isn't in that movie much. And he just nails it, dude. That fucking scene is pretty epic.
He's in like 2 scenes. He's in like 3 scenes, maybe. But he steals every one of them.
That's just an epic scene. Such, like, just strong dialogue, and he just eats it up, man. That part where he tells him, like, that's what life is, loss. And it's just fucking like, what?
Yep.
This fucking hard motherfucker. So, yeah, and you're right. After that, there's the interim period where he's a buffalo hunter.
Yeah, and those parts are tolerable, I think, because
Tom Sizemore.
You get Tom Sizemore and Bill Pullman.
Yeah,
I loved Bill Pullman in that movie.
As the Masterson brothers, Bat Masterson and his brother,
and Edward Masterson.
Bat,
those were great.
And shot. Yeah, those were little touches you didn't get in Tombstone, because I mean, how many characters could you have in Tombstone?
But like that's where you first get like like I said, the fully evolved version of Wyatt Earp. When I think he's like he's the sheriff of like Dodge City.
Yeah, that's
And-
where we catch up with him. Well, he's the sheriff of Dodge City, and he got fired and rehired a couple times as the sheriff of Dodge City. The real Wyatt Earp had a very tumultuous life and moved around constantly, and he had like 10 different fucking careers and was basically like the get rich quick scheme guy of the late 1800s before he took up being a lawman in Dodge City as he was getting older, and he got a reputation, and he kind of cleaned up Dodge. All these fucking phrases you get. Like, he just became one of those legendary lawmen. Who knows how much of it was real and whatnot. He also got like as is in the Kevin Costner movie, he got a reputation for being a hard ass and for beating the shit out of people a lot.
Well, yeah, that was one of the things I noticed. He's in Dodge City, and Bill Pullman is trying to talk the gun off of a guy because they had that law: you can't carry guns in the city limits. And Ed Masterson, Bill Pullman, is trying to say like, oh yeah, you got to give up your guns. And while he's trying to talk him out of it, Wyatt Earp runs up behind the dude, pistol whips him. And that was Mustache Wyatt Earp. And it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. He's like he's fully formed. He's a take no shit, act first, strike first kind of guy. Like Gene Hackman had advised him earlier. Just you got to strike first before you get killed. And yeah, the guy's palming like a derringer, getting ready to shoot Bill Pullman.
Yeah, yep, yeah, and that's how Ed ends up dying later, pretty much after Wyatt leaves. He gets gunned down in a kind of similar situation,
which is a great gunfight, by the way.
Yeah, the gunplay in Wyatt Earp was very realistic.
Really
everything in Tombstone is super Hollywoody. The gunfights are a little like the gunfight. The OK Corral gunfight exchange is pretty okay. It's pretty restrained, but even that's a little over the top. And then everything else is turned up to like 10 at least. And that includes the costumes. Like, they're not full on, 1960s Western costumes, even though the Clint Eastwood ones were pretty, I guess they were pretty, they weren't like bright shirts and stuff. But I mean, just Curly Bill jumps out at me.
Oh, with the red
Powers
shirt.
Booth. Yeah, Powers Booth. The red shirt and the black chaps with the
four cards.
Aces. Yeah, with the 4 aces on each one. They're colored in like,
You know
whatever.
what that reminds me of?
What?
There's a character in that other unintelligible, unwatchable Western, The Quick and the Dead. Lance Henriksen is in that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he's like covered head to toe in like playing cards, like stitched into his shit.
That's right.
And then like he gets shot dead by Gene Hackman, and then everybody steals all of his stuff. They strip him naked in the street, steal all of his leather. But like that's what it's like. Curly Bill. He's got like playing cards like on his chaps. It's ridiculous. No one would ever have those.
No, it's very movie stuff. But it's consistent. I'll give it that. Like, there's that consistent feel throughout, and it's not so ridiculous that it's goofy. But it's quite obviously a movie. Whereas Wyatt Earp, I think, tries to be much more historically accurate with everything from the costuming to the firearms to the even in the earlier sections of the movie in the beginning, the revolvers and the rifles you see are all period correct. Like, they get more advanced as the movie progresses, so they were paying attention to that too. All that stuff is pretty realistic, but it's easy to see why Tombstone did better, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of people that would appreciate that sort of authenticity and accuracy in terms of what they were wearing and their firearms, but the general public en masse is going to go for the type of stuff they did at Tombstone.
Yeah, it's like Wyatt Earp is here, and then you get to and then Quick and the Dead is like all the way up here, and Tombstone's in the middle somewhere.
Oh God, Quick and the Dead, yeah. Like all the sliders are pushed up to 11.
Yeah, like those are just cartoon characters. It's almost like they're characters in a video game. In that film, I don't know what the source material was for that, but it's goofy.
It's bad.
But okay, so the other big comparison, and the other reason that Tombstone did so well and is regarded as a classic by so many, is Val Kilmer.
Oh God,
Playing Doc Holliday. So in Wyatt Earp, we had Dennis Quaid playing Doc Holliday, and he.
Can I just say, I was unprepared for Dennis Quaid. I knew Dennis Quaid was in that movie, but I'm very used to what Dennis Quaid looks like.
Yeah.
And when I saw him,
all out.
I was like, holy shit, how much weight did he lose? And man, he was great.
Yeah, he did. It's such a shame because he gave such a great performance, and he lost like 100 pounds. He was skinny as shit because Doc Holliday had tuberculosis at the time and was rail thin. And he dove right into it hard. And there was just no way he wasn't going to be overshadowed by Val Kilmer's performance, which a lot of people say is the best of his career. And they're probably right. Like, he was just made to play that role. And they gave him so many good things to work with. Like, not just dialogue, like he got so many cherry lines, but also he got to be in the coolest scenes too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like Wyatt, Kurt Russell, Wyatt's the backbone of the movie, but Doc is just the fun. He's the, he every scene he's in, he just steals it. He's incredible, and it's a shame. It's a shame if, I don't know, now I guess we're lucky having both movies now, and getting to look back at them because we can appreciate them both because they didn't come out 6 months apart to us because they're out, they're just in the library. And for new people who weren't alive when they came out, it's good that they have both because they're both good in different ways, I think.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. You talk about authenticity, right? Wyatt Earp had authenticity, and Tombstone was more Hollywood, right? But I think this is one of those areas where it works in Tombstone's favor that they're more Hollywood, because in order for Dennis Quaid to be authentic about what life was like as someone living with tuberculosis, and to all our listeners out there, maybe turn down the volume a little bit, but you had Dennis Quaid going like, yeah, I'm Doc Holliday, and he was like,
yeah, he did cough a lot.
There was just all this awful.
Yeah, he had some phlegmage going on.
That's what tuberculosis sounds like. So yeah, points for authenticity, right? But like, good Lord, it was a lot to deal with as a viewer. You're like, okay, speed up the coughing, be Doc Holliday, and then you watch Val Kilmer, and you could tell he looked visibly ill. He looked like he was going to die at any second. But
yeah, they really did a great job making him look sick.
Just
with his pallor,
horrible.
They had him sweaty a lot, like he was feverish, which he would have been.
They must have doused him before every take.
Yeah, but Val Kilmer did he went the other way, and he made Doc more of like he was always trying to hold the coughs in.
He was stifling everything.
Yeah, like he didn't want to really cough in front of people, and he was always just trying to swallow it. I'll never forget the scene where he's on the horse toward the end during the Vengeance ride, the Vendetta ride, and he coughs, and when he topples off his horse, he got blood all down his chin. That always freaked me out when I was younger because he just looks so bad.
And even when he's delivering lines, you could hear some just kind of coughing under, under his breath. He's trying to hold it back because he doesn't want to back down from whatever fight he's about to get into.
Well, the best example of that is the gunfight with Johnny Ringo in the last act. that's just one of the greatest scenes in a Western ever.
Well,
I'm
number
sorry.
one, Johnny Ringo, right?
Yeah,
That's
Michael
your
Biehn.
boy. That's your boy, Michael
My
Biehn.
boy Michael Biehn. Yeah,
You love that guy.
fuck yeah, he's the shit, and he kicked ass as Johnny Ringo. Man,
He was great.
It's so important to have good villains, and he was just over the top enough for this movie to fit, and he also had to. For most of the movie, he's getting overshadowed by Powers Booth and his 10,000 watt smile and his very vivacious curly bill.
And his red shirt.
It's a lot of fun to watch, though, man. I like Powers Booth.
He
I
was
liked him.
great.
He was in the original Red Dawn. He was the Air Force captain who gets shot down and ends up helping.
Yeah, you're right.
Helping the Wolverines. I liked him ever since that, man. And he's great as Curly. And again, he's so unrecognizable with that huge mustache and the long hair, and he never takes his hat off.
And he's a schmoozer.
Yeah.
He's always got this
great.
big, like you said, his 10,000 watt smile, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, he's drunk. He's dark. Don't worry about him. He's smooth.
He's just drunk, that's all. He's just drunk.
He smooths it over until he knows he's got an advantage. You know.
And he's all sewn on opium and starts shooting at the moon, and he shoots the sheriff. I
Which
think those
is-
revolvers have like 15 rounds in each of them.
You know what? Because I know you, and because I know you pay attention to that shit, I was like counting shots. I'm like, okay, yeah, he definitely. What did he stop and reload in his opium-induced stupor?
There's a lot. And I'm pretty sure during the gunfight at the OK Corral, Doc fires 3 shots from his double-barrel shotgun. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
but
we'll forgive him. It was a
are
really
you gonna
quick
do?
reload.
What are you going to do?
But yeah, Michael Biehn versus Doc Holliday.
Yeah.
At the Big Oak, as the guy says, and like is and again, it's one of the most quotable westerns ever. You know, people quotable movies, and you have Doc Holliday walking through the shadows. They think it's Wyatt Earp, and Doc Holliday emerges from the shadows. I'm your Huckleberry.
For the second time. It's a callback to an earlier scene.
But
Which
like
is great.
again, a line you hear constantly, "I'm your Huckleberry," and then it's like, "Oh, I was only playing. I wasn't." It's one of those cherry lines you just
Play for
you
blood,
alluded to.
remember? No, man, he was born for that role.
That scene's
Everything,
incredible.
The walk, the way he just wore those guns and used them. It was very Hollywoody and fake, but man, he
And you know
he
what's
committed
funny?
to it.
I saw Tombstone first, and so I have that scene in my head. That scene is epic, iconic, you know. And there's just all this build up to Johnny Ringo, and they even going back to that scene in the bar when Johnny Ringo is flipping his gun around, and Doc Watson just completely disarms the whole room by flipping the little tin cup around.
Yep. That's after their little
scene's
Latin
incredible.
exchange, right?
Yeah, Johnny Ringo's an educated man. Now I really hate him.
And Wyatt's got the fucking shotgun under the table the whole time. No, that's another.
They
Every scene the
build-
two of them are
Yeah,
in are great,
man.
is great.
They build all that tension. And so by the time Johnny Ringo squares off against Doc Holliday, you're on the edge of your seat, like, fuck, I'm ready. Let's do this. So then you go to Wyatt Earp, right? And
Yeah. I know where
man.
you're going.
the way that exchange ends is they walk into that canyon and there's gunfire everywhere. There's bullets flying through Wyatt Earp's trench coat because he was never actually shot, but he was like bulletproof essentially. And then you have Dennis Quaid ends his, like, I think it's like his last line in the movie. He just goes, "Johnny Ringo," and just like shoots Johnny Ringo off of a cliff. And that's all you get from that rivalry. And if you've seen Tombstone first, you feel cheated. You're like, what the fuck, man? That's how Doc Holliday gets Johnny Ringo. He just shouts Johnny Ringo at the top of his lungs and just shoots him. And that's it.
Yeah. It's just one of those cases of, in respect to Tombstone, they picked characters to be the antagonists because the whole gang that they were dealing with were kind of equally antagonistic toward the Earp brothers, right?
Right.
Like in real life, it was very messy, and the lines weren't so clear. So when they made Tombstone, they just like, all right, so Johnny Ringo was, nobody knows him, no one ever heard of him. It's a new name, but he was real. So we'll make him like second antagonist. He won't be Wyatt's antagonist, he'll be Doc's antagonist because Doc is second lead.
Yeah,
and
they're
Wyatt's
foils.
sidekick. Yeah, it's how they decided to, it's a good setup. It's a great setup.
It works in a movie, in a fiction.
Yeah. It would have felt really weird, I think, in Wyatt Earp, if they had done any version of that, or if they even tried, because it's a very different Doc Holliday too. He's not nearly as playful. He's a little playful, and he's got a dark sense of humor in Wyatt Earp, but he's not nearly as playful as Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday. It's just too different. It wouldn't have worked, and it's probably, like you said, the way it went down in Wyatt Earp is probably more how it really went down.
Yeah.
Does that make it a better story? Probably not. No. Who lets truth get in the way of a good story?
Yeah, it depends on what you're going for. Are you going for accuracy or are you going for entertainment?
Yeah.
And if you're going for straight entertainment, yeah, Tombstone, that version of events is like way, way more interesting. But, if that's how it really went down, then points to Wyatt Earp for sticking to the source material.
Now, here's something else to mention, too. We talked about how it's nice that we have the luxury of having both of these movies available to us now. When these came out, we already said Wyatt Earp is slow. It's long. It was on 2 tapes. It had if you put them side by side, you just kind of want to watch Tombstone more,
Yeah.
Even just by the cover of the movie, the poster. But you also have to realize, so Tombstone came out in 93 during the holiday run-up season, okay? So that means it was probably in theaters until, February-ish, maybe March even. And then it probably didn't come out on video until the following March. So you're into 95 now. And so imagine that movie comes out, you heard about it, but because people don't understand, I don't think, how the general public knew about movies before the internet. Young folks don't remember. They don't know. And old folks have forgotten. But for me, it was commercials on TV. Now, this still exists. There's still commercials for movies that run on YouTube and shit, right? But
Okay.
they were different, right, when they were on TV. So if you had a big release movie, it would usually get a 60-second commercial trailer, right? And then a cut down 30.
Mm-hmm.
And they would run these. And they would run them leading up to the release. They would run the now in theaters version, especially if it did really well, if it started taking off. They'd ramp it up. And then it would go away for a little bit. And then when the movie was about to come onto home video,
oh, yeah,
they'd start running them again with a different kicker at the end. Soon available on fucking Warner Brothers home VHS or whatever the fuck, right? And get the soundtrack from Warner Brothers Records on tape and CD. So that was the cycle of it. And if a movie was big and did really well, you saw the media for it, the advertising for it, multiple times over the course of like a year and a half. And it was real easy even then for people to get confused. So imagine all of a sudden you see a movie after this huge success of Tombstone. It's out on video. Everyone loves it. People talk about it, right?
Coming soon.
Yeah.
Wyatt Earp.
And you're like, didn't they just fucking make this? But no, that's Kevin. Are you fucking kidding me? And it's like, and I remember vividly when I don't know if it was from the commercial or if I actually saw it in the video store, but when I found out Wyatt Earp was a thing, I'm like, they just started making Westerns again, and they're already out of fucking ideas. Like, they're already giving us the same shit back to back. And it just didn't, that hurt it too. I mean, that just killed it. And like you said, the first half of it is this weirdly paced, kind of nothing burger story until they get to Tombstone.
You're just waiting for the mustache.
I'm just waiting for the stash, dude. Just waiting for the mouth pussy. The vendetta rides, too, after Virgil gets shot and Morgan gets killed. They're different in their flavor.
They are.
But, again, Wyatt Earp's was more realistic, and Tombstone's was just grandiose. Just
Tombstone's was nuts.
horse chases and just quick cuts. And
That's the part that I thought my dad was telling me was unwatchable.
just a violence montage.
Unintelligibly filmed. And I was like, that part's awesome. What are you talking about? That part's great. And I just assumed that's what he meant. But
It moves at a good clip, but it's very easy to follow, and there's all kinds of cool spectacle shit to watch. And then as that winds down, you get a scene with Charlton Heston.
Yeah, Henry Hooker.
Fucking out of nowhere. And there's just something about that man's voice being in a movie. He's fucking Moses coming down and just being in a movie, just, I don't know. It elevated that a bit more. Some John Huston action. I don't know. Tombstone's just a fucking great movie, man.
Yeah, it really is.
As goofy and cartoonish as it is, it's a great movie.
Yo, real quick, 119. Remember that? 119.52. I got to pee real fast. I'll be back in like 30 seconds.
19.
Sorry.
No. I can hear Tom peeing. I can hear Tom peeing. Thomas pees. Thomas pees. Thomas pees. Pees. I heard him peeing. I dreamed I met a Galilean, a most amazing man. He had that look you very rarely find, the hunted kind.
Sorry about that.
I heard you pee.
Yeah. Oh, word?
Yeah, we recorded you peeing. We talked about it.
Okay. 119.52 to 121.42. Yeah. What? Tombstone is a fantastic movie.
Now, you're a big fan of Tombstone. You'd say you like it better than Wyatt Earp generally, right?
Generally I did like it better than Wyatt Earp. But,
Right.
There are things that I give like points to Wyatt Earp about because like it told you a story of Wyatt Earp that you didn't get in Tombstone.
Yeah, more the man.
Yeah, you get the story of the
characters.
man as opposed to the myth. Like Wyatt Earp, you hear that name, it's like mythical among West, even like on down to like you go to the voiceover. I always used to chuckle at the end of Tombstone because they were like, among the pallbearers of Robert Mitchum, among the pallbearers at Wyatt Earp's funeral were early Western stars Gene Autry and Tom Mix.
Tom Mix.
And then the last line is, Tom Mix wept.
Yeah, it's like the fucking line from the Bible, Jesus wept.
Tom Mix wept. It's fucking great. I love it. But
And Mitchum does the little intro bit at the beginning, right, over the old footage.
and he says Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, California. That's one of those guys that you can see his face when you hear his voice, no matter what.
Yeah.
What a great fucking yeah! All those little touches too made it very. It's a Western. It's a real Hollywood Western. And like we said, Wyatt Earp is a biopic, and I think it does a good job. And there's a lot of Kevin Costner-y shit in it because he was at the zenith of his ego. It was before Waterworld, and the postman knocked him down a few pegs. But when it comes to gritty, realistic Westerns, I don't know, my vote still goes to Unforgiven.
Oh, God.
Speaking of Gene Hackman, yeah.
Unforgiven's incredible. That's my favorite Western of all time.
I've been watching that movie since it came out, so like 30 years, and it never gets old. It never loses its impact, really. It's so out of time, that movie. Like, I don't think it can ever be, it's probably me because I'm old, I don't see it, but I don't think it could ever be become dated. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it falls into that bucket of where, like you said earlier, you had like the 90s came around, and after a dearth of Westerns, you get the genre gets like reinvigorated at a time when they were got really good at making them.
Yeah.
You know, like that Western is like flawlessly executed at a time when there weren't a lot happening, you know, like you kind of had, like you said, what, Last of the Mohicans and Dances with Wolves came out, and then Unforgiven comes out. What year was that?
92, I believe.
Yeah. Somewhere around there. And they got really good at making them, and there weren't the market wasn't saturated with, like, you're not like, oh, another Western, and that comes out and you're like, oh God, yeah, this is incredible. And it's like Clint Eastwood at the peak of his powers, man.
Yeah.
He's like, he had just become like an old man in that era, and it works for that character.
And he'd played and done so many Western tropes through his career. He knew exactly what not to put in Unforgiven, and he pretty much controlled the whole movie as a star and the director, and I think the producer too. He surrounded himself with amazing actors, a script that's just enough but not too much, and just the way that movie looks. It's just an incredible piece of cinema. I have a hard time thinking I'll ever see a Western that's better than that movie.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the actors. Like you have a couple like larger than life characters, right? In the same way that like Doc Holliday in Tombstone was like a larger than life character, but there wasn't a lot of it that stretched the imagination. Like you didn't have a hard time believing that guy existed, right? Unforgiven kind of does the same thing. You have Richard Harris, right? Plays English Bob, which was a great character. Just like this fucking smarmy Englishman shitting on all things American while challenging people to a pistols duel, you know, and like, you know that he can back it up and he'll shoot you dead. You have Saul, what's that guy's name? Saul Rubinek?
Oh, the biographer?
The biographer, yeah. He was great in that movie, just being like, he was just like the cowardly guy that was going to hide behind whoever.
I'm shot. You ain't shot.
Just hiding behind, you know, whoever he thought was going to keep him alive. And then you have, you know, The Love Never Ends for Gene Hackman. Played, what was his name? In the
Little Bill.
Little Bill, yeah. I almost said Curly Bill. Little
Daggett.
Little Bill. And man, he is a mean motherfucker in that movie.
He's a great bad guy. And then you got Morgan Freeman, too.
Oh, Morgan Freeman. Yeah, Morgan Freeman was great in that movie. I can still knock the eye out of a bird flying.
Fucking Spencer rifle. That was so cool. It was the first time I ever saw a Spencer rifle in anything. That was so fucking cool. And I forget, I cannot dig up the actress's name, but the actress who plays Darla in Unforgiven, she was wait, was it Darla in Unforgiven? What was it? She's the one who gets
Wait
her
a
face
minute.
cut up in the beginning. She
Darla
plays
was her
Darla in The
name
Crow.
in The Crow.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I
What the
forget
hell's
her name in Unforgiven. She was great.
Yeah, yeah. It's just weird that she was in a bunch of stuff right around the same time, and then she vanished. I don't know, maybe she died an unfortunate death. I can't find her. But I mean, all these movies, we're lucky to have such great casts. Wyatt Earp and Tombstone included. Like, you just run down both of them. I mean, Wyatt Earp had, be outside of the core cast. Mark Harmon from NCIS fame.
Oh, he played Behan.
Yeah, he was amazing. You got Michael Madsen, Catherine O'Hara played one of the Earp wives. Like you said, Bill
She
Pullman.
was great.
Yeah, she's always great. She was sassy. She was Allie Earp, I think that was Virgil's wife.
Yeah.
Isabella Rossellini was Big Nose Kate, Doc Holiday's girlfriend. Sizemore, we said. And Rex Lynn.
I know who
him if
Rex
you've seen
Lynn
him.
is. He was in Cliffhanger.
Yeah, bad guy from Cliffhanger. That's how I always remember.
He was one of the McLaury brothers.
Yeah, he's in so many things, but just there's so many characters in Wyatt Earp.
I thought about this. Like if you're going to compare the two, you kind of like run down the cast, right? And if you look at Tombstone, I think you look at the main cast. You got like Kurt Russell, Wyatt Earp. You got what's his name? Jesus.
Bill Paxton.
Yeah, Bill Paxton was
Sam Elliott,
Morgan.
Val Kilmer.
Sam Elliott was Virgil. Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. Those four guys were incredible. I think you give that nod to Tombstone. But then you go to like Wyatt Earp and you look at some of the other characters, and like Mark Harmon as the Sheriff Behan was such a greasier piece of shit than the guy whoever played him in Tombstone,
Yeah, for sure.
So I give
Definitely.
I give that one to Wyatt Earp. You look at the wives, Catherine O'Hara and the wives. They were great in Wyatt Earp.
Well, they had time to actually develop them a little bit as characters. They didn't have much, but they were different. Like in Tombstone, they even make a joke at the beginning of the movie that they all almost look like they could be sisters. They're just interchangeable blonde women, except for Maddie, who is the laudanum addict. And that was the same in both movies, too. Thomas Hayden Church, too, was in Tombstone.
Yeah,
the bad guys. What a great cast of bad guys. Michael Biehn, like we said,
movie?
in Powers Booth.
In Tombstone, yeah.
But then you also had Stephen Lang as Ike Clanton. You had Thomas Hayden Church as Billy Clanton, right? And then you had Jason Priestley was even in there, dude. You know?
Jason Priestley. He was kind of like the pecked upon like new guy.
Yeah, the nerdy guy with the glasses. And you had who's
Michael
the
Rooker?
actor? Michael Rooker, yeah, another Cliffhanger.
Masterson.
And Billy Zane. Billy Zane.
Billy Zane was the actor.
Yeah, listen to your friend Billy Zane. He's a cool dude.
So, but then you go to Wyatt Earp, right? And Wyatt Earp had, again, you had Tom Sizemore, Bat Masterson. That was a character you didn't get in Tombstone. Bill Pullman, Ed Masterson. I loved his character. He was great in Wyatt Earp. You don't get him at all in Tombstone. You get
you get more Earp brothers too.
You get a Jim Caviezel plays
he played
Warren Earp.
Yeah.
You get a bonus Earp brother, and then you look at some of the bad guys. The bad guy, like the cowboy gang in Wyatt Earp. You had whoever, I can't remember the guy's name that played Curly Bill, but he was just like he was a smaller character. He wasn't the leader of the gang. He was like Ike Clanton, I think, was like the one that like they put up as a leader.
I think Curly Bill was formerly their leader, but he was more quiet and reserved in this. That actor's
but like
name
more
is
menacing.
The actor's name is Lewis Smith.
He didn't seem as ridiculous as Powers Booth.
No,
Now,
not
don't
at
get me
all.
wrong. I like Powers Booth as Curly Bill. He was great. but he was a little over the top, and like you got like a more down to earth, like evil version of a cowboy villain in Wyatt Earp.
Yeah,
You had Gene
they were all a
Hackman.
bit more grounded.
You had Gene Hackman in Wyatt Earp. Like you look at the cast, I think you get more out of the Wyatt Earp story from the Costner one, but my least favorite part of Wyatt Earp is Kevin Costner. If that makes sense. I guess I just don't like him as Wyatt Earp because of the first half of the movie. You know, he eventually settles in and things, but like you look at the rest of that cast, that movie's dynamite in terms of just who they got to be in it.
Yeah, I think it could have done with a little serious editing at the top end. I didn't need to dwell so much in the lead up, but you're not going to do yourself a disservice if you haven't seen it by seeing Wyatt Earp. It's a great movie with a great cast, more historically accurate than anything else out there, I think, about Wyatt Earp, even though it's still kind of wrong. But if you want to have fun and watch a really fun Western with great acting and great action, I mean, Tombstone is there too. They're excellent. It was a great era for Westerns, and they keep, they're popping up every so often. Like you get Hollywood tries, and sometimes it takes, and sometimes it doesn't.
Like what?
Well, there was the remake of 310 to Yuma.
That was good.
I like that, actually. Yeah,
That was a good movie.
With Russell Crowe doing
Christian
much better
Bale.
than he did in Quick and the Dead. Yeah, Christian Bale and a really strong supporting cast, including Peter Fonda, I think, right? I think that was one of his
don't
last
remember.
roles. Yeah, I think that was one of his last roles. I actually like it better than the original. I saw the remake first, so that might have had something to do with it, but I went back and watched the original 310 to Yuma, and I like the newer one better.
Of course you did.
Well, they tried to do the same thing with the Magnificent Seven. They remade that. I don't know if you missed that or not, but
I didn't
Denzel
see that.
Washington and
I knew
Ethan
of it.
Hawke. It was not great, and it wasn't just because Chris Pratt's in it.
I like Chris Pratt.
I have nothing against Chris Pratt. I'm just breaking his manly
Yeah.
balls. So every once in a while, you'll get a batch of Westerns come along, and sometimes there's good ones. And then there's always, luckily, there seems to be this undercurrent, though, of low-budget Westerns that come out every so often. Like you got Appaloosa.
Appaloosa was
It's a
great.
great movie with Viggo Mortensen and
He's Vigo.
Ed Harris. A tremendous movie.
I got a weird.
Jeremy Irons is the bad guy in that, right? Yeah.
I got a weird one for you.
Huh.
Did you ever see a Western called The Proposition?
Yes. Yes, I have.
It takes place in Australia.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Guy Pearce,
Guy Pearce. Okay.
Danny Houston.
Yep.
That movie's wild.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. That was made around the same time as Seraphim Falls.
I did not see Seraphim. Oh, wait, I did. Pierce Brosnan?
Pierce Brosnan and Liam Neeson.
I saw that one.
It's very cartoonish, but it's.
Yo,
I had a lot of fun with it.
Pierce Brosnan pops out of a dead horse and tries
Brosnan
to kill.
He wears a fucking horse like a tauntaun.
He's like inside of it. He pops out of a dead horse to try to kill Liam Neeson.
This
That
giant
movie's
fucking
nuts.
knife. Yeah, that was a crazy one, man. I like that one. Open Range is a really good one.
I've not seen Open Range.
You got to see that. That's
Who's in it?
Costner.
I'll forget it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's Costner and it's Robert Duvall. It's about 20 years old now. They made that in 2003. I don't know why no one heard about it, but it was a really solid Old West story. It's not very grand. It's not real big. It's tight and intimate and violent, and it's good. It's kind of like a Cormac McCarthy kind of vibe to it.
Ooh, I love Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, small cast but good cast. Yeah, you check that one out. Of all the ones we
Open
mentioned,
Range.
yeah,
Okay,
I would say
I got one
definitely
for
check
you.
that one out.
How
and that
about
dude, go ahead.
Bone Tomahawk?
Bone Tomahawk. Yeah, I was just going to mention that because we were talking about Kurt Russell mustaches, and he's got an epic one in that. That's a hell of a movie. I don't even know what you call that. It's what, Western horror?
Yes, Western horror.
It's a great movie.
You know,
If
it's
you can
kind of
stomach
funny. Yeah, I used to. I mean, I don't listen to him so much anymore. I used to really like a band called Murder by Death. You ever heard of Murder by Death?
I have.
Yeah. So the best way I've heard them described is the soundtrack to a Western horror film.
Okay.
And then I
Okay,
was like,
that tracks.
Yeah. I was like, that's accurate. That's how I would describe them. And then I was like, I don't know if I've ever seen a Western horror film. And then Bone Tomahawk came out, and I'm like, yep, that's a Western horror film, all right.
I went into that shit completely blind.
Me too.
I'd never heard of it. It showed up on like HBO or some shit. And I was like, oh, a Western with Kurt Russell, and some kind of weird description said something about, a horror in the caves or something. All right, fine.
It's like, yeah, I'm in.
Was not prepared for what I was walking into. You'll remember this movie if you haven't seen it. You'll remember this one. And it's got a great setup that I don't know of any other movie that, especially no other Western, has done anything like this. It's kind of like The Hills Have Eyes, more than anything else, but still different from that. It's very original, I think. I guess. I mean, I'd call it original.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Blew me the fuck away. But yeah, it just shows there's still. And that one's not even that old, right? Bone Tomahawk came out in
2015.
2015.
Nailed it.
So I mean, it shows you can still do a lot with the genre, whether that means combining it with other genres and doing weird takes. Like, they even tried it with that Cowboys and Aliens movie.
Yeah, that's a different take. I never saw that, but
I saw it. It didn't do much for me, but they also made Wild Wild West. I don't know who the fuck was behind the wheel on that. And Jesus, that's such a terrible movie.
That one's bad.
But yeah, that was a product of that 90s resurgence in Westerns. Then you ended up there, unfortunately. But you also got things like Lonesome Dove and Silverado mixed in there, and there's a lot. There's a lot of good stuff that came out, but Tombstone and Wyatt Earp were pretty early on.
I got a weird one for you.
Uh-oh.
Did you ever see Quigley Down Under?
Of course.
Of course. That's a great movie.